Welcome to the Witness History podcast from the BBC World Service. Today, we're taking you back to 2005 and to the late Pope Benedict's election by the Papal Conclave. In 2015, Rebecca Kesby spoke to Cardinal Cormac Murphy O'Connor, who was there at the time.
Pater de celis Deus, miserere nobis, Filii Redemptor mundi Deus,
April 2005, and prayers are being said in the elaborate Sistine Chapel at the Vatican before 115 cardinals begin to vote for the man who'll lead 1 billion Catholics worldwide indefinitely. Cardinal Cormac Murphy O'Connor, former head of the Catholic Church in England and Wales, is among them.
Well, it does look quite dramatic. They're all the cardinals dressed in scarlet, sitting around. And then somebody says, exeunt omnes, which means everybody go out, except the cardinals. So that was a very dramatic moment because the door is kind of shut and there's a thud. And then I remember looking round at the other 114 cardinals and thinking to myself, well, one of us will be going out with a white cassock on.
The word conclave comes from the Latin cum clave, meaning with a key. The cardinals are locked together in the chapel, cut off from the rest of the world. They continue to cast ballots for each other until a 2/3 majority is achieved.
3 cardinals are elected to be the scrutineers, and one by one we go up with our voting slip. And it's very, very moving and very memorable because when you go up, above you is Michelangelo's Last Judgment, so it's quite a solemn affair. And what you say is, I declare before God that this is the man I think should be the next pope. So it's all, as I say, you're looking at the Last Judgment. I found it very moving, and it's something I'll always remember.
Many of the cardinals will already have ideas about who to support. The Vatican corridors buzz for days before the conclave.
During those days, you have, inverted commas, secret meetings with other cardinals to discuss names of possible popes. What candidates were there and who might be most suitable. And so it was in that way that I came to a conclusion of who I'd vote for, at least at the beginning.
Outside, thousands of Catholics gather in St. Peter's Square, looking skywards to the chimney, where twice a day smoke signals from inside the Vatican announce whether a pope has been elected. The first wisps of smoke excite the expectant crowd. But when that smoke turns black, they realise the cardinals have not yet reached agreement and will vote again.
The news is black smoke about 2-3 minutes ago. It's still coming out now, actually. I can see it billowing out there. It certainly isn't white, that's for sure.
Inside the Sistine Chapel, the ancient ritual goes on. Cardinal Cormac Murphy O'Connor watches as the cardinals given the job of counting the votes announce the results.
The votes are read out by the scrutineers after they've examined them. And then the senior cardinal goes up to him and asks, would he accept? So we all waited with bated breath. And once he says yes, once he says, I accept as the will of God, as Pope Benedict did, he's Pope.
Can you remember that moment when one of the scrutineers was approaching Joseph Ratzinger, as he was then?
Yes, I do remember it very well. What I remember is the silence that reigned, and he looked very solemn, and I think he looked kind of not only lucid, but also calm. And then he goes out. There's a papal tailor outside with 3 cassocks, white cassocks, large, medium, and small. And then after 10 minutes or so, he comes back and he's put in the middle, and we all go up and kiss his ring. And it doesn't matter how you voted or whatever, he's the Pope now. And it's very dramatic, it's very moving, and it's very faithful.
At last, smoke rises again. and this time it's white. Priests, nuns and ordinary Catholics rush to the square to find out which of the cardinals will emerge as Pope. All eyes turn to the famous Vatican balcony, where a cardinal declares, "We have a Pope."
Habemus Papam, Cardinalem Ratzinger.
Can I ask you if you voted for Pope Benedict to start with?
No, you can't. I'm not allowed to say, and it was very interesting, at the end of the day, how glad I was that he was elected. A lot of people obviously didn't vote for him. A lot changed their minds on the way through. But once he said, "I accept as the will of God," every cardinal there then is happy and content, knowing that this is the will of God, that this man should be there, whether they voted for him or not.
Given that, then, it must have been a bit of a shock to hear that he was going to resign. I mean, some people might see it even as a betrayal that he's stepping down.
Well, people have said all sorts of things. It certainly was a surprise, but I think all one needs to do is to look what he himself said, that he genuinely felt that age and weakness made him incapable of carrying on the burden of being a pope. And when I look back, when I talked to him about the books he was writing, his face lit up. This is what he really wanted to do. He didn't want to be pope. He wanted to retire like me and devote his time to prayer, reflection, study, and do the writing. And I thought to myself then, what a sacrifice he'd made in accepting the burdens of the papacy. There had been one or two hints, I think, from Pope Benedict. One of them was when he laid some flowers on the tomb of the last pope who resigned, which was Pope Celestine, back in the 12th century. And he went to visit his grave, and, well, he needn't have done it.
In fact, Benedict didn't just leave flowers on the grave of Celestine, the last pope to resign 600 years ago, amid serious rifts in the church. He also left the woolen pallium, the ceremonial scarf that he wore during his own papal inauguration. If he already had thoughts of resignation then, he waited another 3 years to announce it, and it's prompted media speculation about possible scandals and divisions within the church.
Well, I think we all know the perfect pope who doesn't exist, but what we do know is that a pope has got to be strong in faith, have a certain ability to work with others and make sure that that's part of his, not only what he says, but in his choice of people who would help, and that's the bishops particularly, and cardinals as well.
Pope Benedict XVI was succeeded by Pope Francis on the 13th of March 2013. He took the title Pope Emeritus as an official acknowledgement of his unique position as a living former pope. He spent his final years in the Mater Ecclesiae Monastery, located in Vatican City. He was speaking to Rebecca Kesby in 2015 for that edition of the Witness History podcast.